Hello everyone, my name is Brian, and today I'll be teaching you guys how to play the Pokemon trading card game. Shall we? Alright, first things first about me, my name is Brian Barry. I have been playing card games for over 20 years of my life, and I have about over half dozen experiences with different card games in those 20 years. I'm pretty averagely knowledgeable about a lot of them, and more importantly, right, I'm a player, collector, and a judge. I love all aspects about trading card games. So for me, I just happen to love it all. So here's the overview about what we're going to talk about, why you should be playing the game, the card types, the rules and restrictions, how to win, and finally, how to set up. This might seem kind of confusing, but as we get there, we'll go through it. There's my cat, sorry about that, y'all. Why you should play it. First and foremost here, it is fun and interactive, and you can socialize with people. Having fun with something is really important, and being interactive along with socializing is an important key aspect about being human. If you don't socialize with anybody, it's not good for you. So it's important that we do socialize. And honestly, if you're doing something that you love while you're doing it, it's pretty great. Additionally, it challenges your brain. It forces you to think in very unconventional ways. And honestly, I love that aspect about it. And lastly, the cards just look cool. People love collecting Pokemon cards just exclusively with the art. But if you want to play the game, it's even better. So you could kind of double dip and have double fun, right? So obviously right here, we do have Pokemon themselves. And the Pokemon here, they range, but we're talking about some very classic base ones, right? These are Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard. These are from the base Pokemon game, or rather base set as it's currently known. This happens also to be the Fire Spirit Pokemon, because whenever you pick up Pokemon in the very beginning of the game, you start with one of them. And we're going with Charmander because it's very iconic and very well known. So, and the Charizard right here also happens to be a very, very well known Pokemon. And that's my cat calling out a Crinkle toy. Hey buddy, how's it going? Anyway, with that in mind, we'll go over a brief explanation of a lot of these. Obviously, next to every name, we happen to have health points right here, and health points are an indicator how much health they have before they get knocked out, which is a core concept of the game. Oftentimes with the games, your Pokemon have health, and once their health goes to 0, they are knocked out. So basically, they are no longer able to battle. In addition to this, you'll also see that each of these guys are fire types. You'll notice it by the symbol. It's actually really important to have symbols in card games, by the way, just because if you're colorblind or anything else, you may not be able to see the fact that this is red, but you can at least see that this is indeed a fire type right here. Additionally, you also see that this is a basic, a stage 1 or stage 2 Pokemon. Those are indicators saying that it happens to be a Pokemon that has to evolve out of something, which is a very core mechanic in both the games and in this, because it's kind of a way for you to progress the game while also being able to build upon it. Right. Additionally, we also have ability or powers, which is very much what this Charizard has. Very unique, very different. Additionally, we also have attacks on every single one of these Pokemon. For example, Charmander has Scratch, Charmeleon has Slash, and Charizard has this Fire Spin. Basically, for each of these attacks, they do damage, and then they next to it. So Scratch would do 10 damage, Slash would do 30 damage, and the Fire Spin would do a whopping 100 damage, which is a lot, by the way. Additionally, we also have weaknesses and resistance. So with these guys each being fire Pokemon, they also have a weakness to water. And since Charizard evolves and gains additional typing, it also has a resistance to fighting typing. If you play the games, you would understand this, but basically Charizard is two different Pokemon types at once. But regardless, they also have a retreat cost, because very much in the games, if you were to retreat your Pokemon, you can. However, though, to make it more fair in the Pokemon sense, you need to have a retreat cost in order for it to be balanced. Otherwise, you would be able to further manipulate and use your Pokemon as much as you possibly could. With that, we also have trainers, and these are split into 4 groups. The first being items. Items are basically kind of like this jack of all trade, can do whatever you want. They are not as powerful as other cards. The thing behind them, though, is you can play any number of them during your turn, which means that if you have a ton of items and kind of get to do a lot, they are great. They offer a great amount of utility. But you know what's better than items? Supporters. Supporters are basically stronger and vastly superior than items. They have less stipulations or less drawbacks to them, but with the caveat being you can only use 1 per turn. And believe me, that is a huge drawback. But at the same time, though, these supporters allow you to do a lot more. So they're actually going to be really good for that reason. Next up, we also have stadiums. Stadiums are different, unlike supporters and items. They actually get to stay on the field instead of going to your discard after you use them. Artisan, for example, here allows you to find yourself a basic Pokemon from your deck to put onto your bench that doesn't have a rule box. And if you're curious what a rule box is, basically it's text like these that kind of give you a reminder of what they actually are and what they can and cannot do. These basically are cards that have stipulations to them. Lastly, we have tools. Tools attached to Pokemon and offer additional bonus effects. For example, if this Bravery Charm was attached to a Charmander earlier, it would go from having 50 to 100 HP. Or this Air Balloon here, allowing you to increase the retreat cost of your Pokemon. So if the Charmander were to have this, you would be able to freely retreat without having to utilize any of your other resources. So they're actually pretty useful for that reason. Additionally, we have energy. Energy comes in two kinds, basic and non-basic. Basic energies, you can run any amount of them in your deck. Non-basics, you are limited to those cards. The reason being is because non-basics offer a ton of great efficiency and do a lot of things, but they do come with, but they are powerful. Hence the reason why you can have a finite amount of these. You can have any number of these as you want. Moving on from that, we have important rules. First and foremost here, Pokemon can evolve in the games just like we do here, but you have to wait in between turns. The idea is your Pokemon have to gain experience, and if they're on the field and everything else, eventually they'll be able to evolve because they've gained experience, but you can't do it immediately. In addition, in order for Pokemon to attack, they need the necessary amount of energy to do so. We just saw energies in the previous one, right here, and your Pokemon actually need these in order to be able to attack. So it is pretty important. So if Pokemon wants to use their attacks, they have to have an appropriate amount of energy cards attached to them. Additionally, you're also limited to actions once per turn, which includes playing a supporter, as which are really good, attaching energy, which we just talked about, and lastly, attacking. All of these are once per turn effects. You can use any number of cards as possible on your turn, but one moment you attack, that's it. Your turn is over. So when you attack, you just make sure that you're ready to attack and your turn is ready to end. Restrictions here is that you can play with exactly 60 cards in deck and can have any number and can have 40 up to a max of 4 cards per deck, excluding basic energy, because trust me, some decks need to run multiples of them. You must have at least one basic Pokemon. This is for starting up for the game, and no more than 6 Pokemon on your side of the field to include the active one. The idea is that if you ever play the Pokemon games, you have an active Pokemon and up to 5 Pokemon in reserves. You always need to have an active Pokemon in order to be able to play the games, and it's kind of the same thing with the trading card game. How to win? We primarily do it by taking out all of our prize cards. How do we get prize cards? We do it by knocking out Pokemon. In order for Pokemon to get knocked out, its HP has to be reduced to 0. So if Charizard, for example, is sitting at 120 HP and has to go and it gets knocked out, it would go from having 120 HP down to 0 HP. Not necessarily at once, but it can be done at once. And then notably is that for every prize card is obtained for every time you knock out a Pokemon or your opponent knocks out a Pokemon. If your opponent knocks out a Pokemon, they take a prize card. If you knock out a Pokemon, they take a prize card. Once all prize cards are obtained by a player, that's it, the game is over. So if your opponent takes all your prize cards, they win. If you take all of your prize cards, you win. Setup's kind of long, but I'm kind of like briefly go through it. Both players are basically determine who goes first. You can do it by rock, paper, scissors, flipping a coin, rolling dice, etc. Just determine whoever goes first. The setup, you basically have to draw 7 cards. You're looking to find that basic Pokemon, hence the reason why earlier I mentioned you need to have a basic Pokemon in your hand. If you cannot find a basic Pokemon, shuffle up, draw 7, and continue until you find a basic Pokemon to start the game. After that, you're going to put it in your active spot, play it face down. Once both players have an active Pokemon face down, you will then take the top 6 cards of your deck, and those will be your prize cards. Prize cards are random; you're not going to know it until you do something, but they are pretty great. Lastly, once both players are done, they flip their active Pokemon and bench, and in order face up in order to start the game. This right here is a basic description of how it works. We have our deck over here, a deck of cards. We have our active Pokemon right here, along with our bench Pokemon, which function as kind of like our backups. We have our discard pile over here, which is where your supporters, items, any other cards you would have used to actively go. A Stadium Zone, which is what we saw earlier, and our prize cards. So for every Pokemon we knock out, we take one of these prize cards. If we run out, we win the game. Pretty simple, right? Going first. Going first has a lot of great things, but it doesn't at the same time. So both players will always draw a card at the start of the game, and they can use any number of trainer cards in their hand except supporters. They can attach up to 1 energy card, and they can use any Pokemon abilities as needed. However, they cannot attack, use a supporter, or evolve any Pokemon. Going second is kind of the same thing. They draw a card. They can use any number of trainer cards, attack to watch it, and use abilities on Pokemon applicable. They can attack and they can use a supporter. Unlike going first, going second allows you to be able to do something because your opponent might be able to set up more Pokemon than you. So going second allows you to be able to at least combat that. However, just like going first, you cannot evolve a Pokemon. And then at that point, let's see here. After the first 2 turns, both players now are officially able to play the game at full speed. You can evolve your Pokemon, you can use attacks, and you can basically do any combinations in order to take those prize cards. Now, the big thing is that momentum can shift at any moment. This is the reason why I said that the game is challenging, but it's fun, and it's also going to force you to kind of like break your thought process, because your prize cards can make or break your strategies. Some cards you need might be in your prize cards, and you have to work around that. So this is kind of the fun aspect. Not only is it fun to play, but you also have to actively think differently, and sometimes that's really good for you. With that in mind, this is kind of my conclusion as to why you should be playing the Pokemon trading card game. Not only is it simple and fun, it's complex and has its moments where it's really fun. There's several years that have helped change the card game, but most importantly, it's kept it alive and thriving for a lot of people right now. And more importantly, there's something for everyone. So honestly, I suggest that if you can, give it a try. It's honestly a ton of fun. All right, everyone, thank you for allowing me to explain you how to play the trading card game, or rather the Pokemon trading card game. And I hope this is very helpful to you. Thank you and goodbye.